Hello, welcome back. I'm Miniature Mike, and today we're going to continue our series on taking a look at character reviews and comparisons. And I thought it would be a lot of fun to just kind of jump in, get them over with, and do the Sith Lords from the Sith faction. Um, I've always thought that the Sith Lords were all so cool. Most of them were really, really cool, interesting, just in some cases extremely powerful characters, and I think most people in the community would agree too. They're not always the most like the best characters out there, and maybe sometimes don't always fit awesomely in all the different squads. Um, but I do think as individual characters, the Sith are so cool. So let's get started. We're gonna do this in two parts, as you can see. There's so many. I think there's like 17 different ones. So we're gonna do the first 8 or so, and then do like the next 8 or 9 in a different video at some point in the future. So for this one, we're gonna mostly cover the ones that we see in Champions of the Force. I think Darth Revan and a couple Legacy of the Force characters, and we'll just go from there and see how this does. Let's get started with Champions of the Force with good old Darth Bane. So Darth Bane, I think he's awesome. Everyone knows he's an absolute tank. He is the quintessential Jedi hunter essentially. Taking a look at his stats, he costs a lot, but he's got 200 hit points, 20 defense, 16 attack, 30 damage. Solid special abilities, not a lot, but the Jedi Hunter and Double go really, really well with his stats. So for force powers, I really like his force powers as well. I really like characters who have just a great variety of useful force powers. And in his case, he's got renewal, he's got assault, sweep, throw, which is fine. I don't love throw, but it's fine. Master of the Force 2, rage, and Sith sorcery. Sith sorcery is awesome. So having all of those things in your tool bag means he's just going to be a very big problem for any enemies, any Force users that you face. So Darth Bane, total tank. He has hit points, top of the line, top notch. He's excellent. His range survivability. He doesn't have any like explicit like range survivability things going on necessarily. He's not necessarily crazy mobile, but he has so many hit points and he has solid defense anyway. It's going to take a while to take him out. His melee survivability is great. Again, huge hit points. Sith sorcery is a nice way to kind of like cancel activations, and then he can just beat you up. So I think he's fantastic in that sense. Great attack, awesome damage potential, special abilities. I'm just giving him a 3. He only has 2 of them, basically. Double and Jedi Hunter. They're nice, but it's not like he has this huge arsenal of them. But his force powers are great. The way his force powers work together is fantastic. I especially really like doing rage and Sith sorcery together. I think that's pretty scary. And if you move, obviously assault and sorcery or rage, great powers, great combinations. And yeah, a lot of versatility, just lots of versatility overall with what he can do with this. But he's especially geared towards killing Jedi. And for Sith Lord score, I'm going to give a 4.5. I think he's not like totally busted, broken, incredible, but he's costs 82 and he gets the job done. He's a tank. He's incredible. And yeah, he's something you don't want to come across. He's pretty fun. And online, he's not too bad, $40 or so. Some of the older Sith aren't too expensive. The newer ones tend to be more pricey, but I think he's pretty awesome. So if I get to another one, instead of saying like 4.5, maybe I'd do like 4.8 or something. But I think he's a fantastic Sith. Definitely costs a lot, so he'll take up a huge part of your squad. But if you build around him properly, you could do some really fun things. After him is a big downgrade. We got Darth Malak, who he's vastly overshadowed by the future Darth Malak. So he's a 52, he's got 120, 20, 15, and 20. So I don't think those are awesome stats for a 52 in the first place. Special abilities, just double and duelist. And then he's got four force points. He's limited. He's got stun, which is kind of like a limited sorcery, just kind of activating your enemy. Throw is fine, I guess. Sith Rage, it's always nice to tack that on there for Sith, but in his case, I don't think I love it quite as much. And then his commander effect it sucks. It just improves combining fire slightly. So, yeah, overall, I think he's a pretty poor Sith. He might actually be one of the worst Sith in the entire game, as a matter of fact. He's just so underpowered. His hit points are lousy for his cost. His range survivability is lousy. He is a duelist, so that helps with his melee survivability a bit. His attack is actually really good, so you can probably be sure he will do the damage that he's going to do, so that's definitely a positive. But his max damage isn't great for someone who's 52. He just has double attack, and Sith Rage isn't always going to be used, but it's there. Force powers are fine. They're limited though. I don't love lightsaber throw, but he has it. Can have its uses. I don't think his abilities harmonize incredibly well, I guess. I don't know. They just kind of a bunch of different things that are sort of helpful, but not all that powerful in the end. Again, not that versatile, I don't think. He's really just kind of geared towards one thing, being a duelist. His commander effect sucks. His Sith Lord Swear, he's not very good. I don't think he's horrible, but he's pretty bad. So I'll put it that way. And he's the mini. I think the mini is actually kind of cool looking. And he costs about $35, $40 online from what I've seen. So he's not that hard to pick up, to be honest with you. But this version's definitely vastly overshadowed by the future Darth Malik. So not a great character. I don't think you'll ever use him in a squad. There's no reason to. And he's definitely the worst of the Champions of the Force Sith by a wide margin. The next one, worst one you could say, and I don't think he's a bad Sith. He just has a very specific role as Darth Nihilus or Nihilus. However, I don't know how to pronounce it right. But for 44, his stats are pretty terrible. So he's 119, 12, and 20. Like that's not that good for 44. He's unspectacular special abilities. But his force powers are really fun. So force 5, drain life 10 is cool. It's not replace attacks, so you can use it in addition to attacking. It's not necessarily guaranteed all the powers in it, but it's cool. So you can kind of tack that onto an attack. Sith Hatred is kind of like a poor man. I don't know. It's kind of like Force Storm, sort of. It's not that awesome, but it could be useful. Maybe, probably not. But Sith Hunger is the cool part, where you spend a force point, range 6, deal 20, you heal 20, and you transfer a force point. So that's kind of what makes him what he is. He's really a support Sith. You mix him with a more powerful character, he's kind of the Robin to Batman, and he'll be really, really helpful at kind of supporting, eliminating force points, and just making life easier for your main guy. And the cool thing about the Sith is they have a lot of main guys, and he can play second fiddle pretty well to a lot of them. So just I'll kind of breeze through it. His stats kind of stink overall. His force powers very nice. Special abilities, he doesn't really have much going for him. He's decently versatile because these abilities help him out in that sense. And I think he's solid. He's just a fine, solid support character. He's pretty pricey though. He's kind of in the 70s range. I've even seen people list him at like $90, $100. He's a really cool figure. And he's just a really, really fun character to get a hold of. Definitely fun to kind of throw him in squads, but just gotta watch out if he just gets a little bit too in front or in the wrong spot, like he'll die so fast. So really cool role, kind of fits this niche, but you get that quick if you're not careful. Exar Kun, he's the other beatstick essentially of Champions of the Force. I think he's awesome. Where he's different than Bane has nice variety of special abilities, force powers, and he's very kind of focused though at just kind of having all the toolkit to kill Jedi and force users. But this guy, I feel like in some ways he's kind of just really strong just all around essentially, and he has a really fun commander effect for savage characters. So Exar Kun, I think he's my favorite. I actually like him a little bit more than Bane. I think he's just terrifying with some of the things he can do. So taking a look at his stats, he's very expensive. He has basically the best stats in the game aside from Grandmaster Luke Skywalker. 180, 23, 19, and 20. So he will hit everyone he attacks. He basically can't miss unless he rolls a 1. So he's guaranteeing his damage. He has triple attack, so very strong. He's Force 3, Force Renewal 1. He does not have Master of the Force 2, which kind of stinks, but it's probably for the best that he doesn't have it. And so we have going on here, and I really like his force powers. So he has Dark Force Spirit 1, so if he does die, which the skirmish is probably over if that happens, but if he dies, then enemy force users are kind of screwed. But I don't think that's necessarily something you want to like bank on happening. It's just kind of like a, oh well, he ran out of gas. Then, and if the enemy has any force users left, they'll kind of get diminished. So I don't think that's the coolest thing about him, but it's a nice thing to tack on there. Assault is always nice to have no matter what. Sith Rage is great with a triple attack, so this guy can do 90 damage, no problem. Sith Sorcery, fantastic, always like that mixed in. But Transfer Essence, I think, is so cool. So essentially what you can do is you can have someone just run into a position that's very advantageous very quickly, and then he can become that character, essentially. And it's not replaces turn or replaces attacks. He can just transfer into position and just triple attack and then just blast somebody out of the water. I just think that's so fun. Some cool things you can do with that. His commander effect is nice. So Savage characters, they benefit from it. So followers that have Savage, they gain Jedi Hunter and they gain momentum. And those are really, really good things because Savage characters, they tend to, like Savage characters, they will have to run up to their target. They'll have to, go up to the target because Savage kind of dictates that. But being able to have momentum makes it much better, makes it more worth it. Less annoying or frustrating. And then having Jedi Hunter, if you're having an enemy with a lot of force users, that makes it even better. So I think this guy is the ultimate person to put with Savage characters. There's all sorts of interesting Savage characters. So many. There's the ones from KOTOR. There's like the arena creatures, and there's so many other Savage characters. I actually like to hear what Savage characters you like mixing with Exarchon. Because there's like the one from KOTOR. I can't pronounce it right. It's like the Rakul or something like that. Essentially the one where as it kills people, it replaces them with itself. I think those with Exarchon would just be a absolutely terrifying combination. So fun things you can do there. But taking a look at overall, I think he's probably one of the best Sith in the entire game, in my opinion. I think he's incredible. I know his Blue Milk score isn't in the 9s, but it doesn't matter. His hit points are awesome. The only reason it's 4.5 is because he's not 5 out of 5 because Darth Bane fits that slot, but it's not really much different. His range survivability is great just because he has just incredible raw stats. And Transfer Essence, he can use that to kind of get in and out of places. His melee survivability is fantastic. Again, he doesn't have like block and things like that, but he has great stats. Sith Sorcery can help with that as well. Attack is top notch. Damage is top notch. Special abilities, just kind of average. It's just triple. That's it. It's really good. Triple's great, but it's not like he has extra things going for him. Force powers are awesome. The way his powers harmonize is incredible. He's very versatile. Can do a lot of different things just because he's just really great all around, in my opinion. I think his commander effect is really nice. It's a very specific commander effect, but it's really cool for Savage characters. He's at a 5 out of 5 for my book, and he's not that expensive. He's only like $40 online. I think he used to be more, but it's not as bad as much. So I think he's basically the best stats in the game, essentially, but he costs it. Making Savage is awesome. And one thing I really like doing with them is I like to use the Eminent Scout with Transfer Essence. So if you don't know, the Eminent Scout is a medium character, and he has Wield, so essentially you can put him into position. And he has Wall Climber, so he can just fly into an enemy position instantly. And then Exarchon on the second activation can take over. The Eminent Scout only costs like 12. He becomes him, and then immediately just starts killing. I had a fun game where it was very early in the game, and my cousin had a ton of Mandalorian characters. He's trying to figure out how best to deploy them, and I had the Eminent Scout just run right in there really quick. The Exarchon was just boom, showed up, and then just immediately just start blasting to pieces. And his defense, his hit points just kind of helped him stay alive for a really, really long time while he was able to just make rounds and just annihilate everyone, kill the commanders. It was fun. It was a really, really fun just kind of take from surprise move. So I think Exarchon's a blast. But let's move on. So Ula Quildroma, I'm also kind of a big fan of this guy. He's maybe not like the most crazy overpowered Sith, but he has a really good toolkit. So he has great hit points, fantastic stats. Like all of these guys, Kun, Bane, and Droma have just ridiculous stats, in my opinion. Basically, some of the best stats in the game you can get. Great hit points, defense, attack, damage. His abilities, though, is pretty boring. He just has double attack, unfortunately. Force powers, though, really nice. I like that he has speed and block and rage, so he can get in places quick. He can defend himself. Rage is nice to mix in, so he can do a little more damage. Excuse me. And his command effect's kind of cool. You can bring any Mandalorians in, which is nice because Mandalorians are really strong, and you can use them as bodyguards too if you like. So you don't have to use that part, but having Mandalorians with Sith could be a fun addition to kind of mix the squads together. So overall, I think he's really great. He's got awesome hit points, especially for a 61. That's about as good as it gets. His range survivability, great. Melee is fantastic because he has awesome stats and block. I really like that. His max damage, though, isn't quite as crazy for a 61, just because it's just 40 damage, maybe 60 sometimes. Special abilities. For a 61, to only have double attack is pretty disappointing, but he has other things that kind of make up for it as well. His force powers are solid. The fact that he is kind of limited and he doesn't have renewal does dock him down a bit in my book, but they're solid. Special abilities don't really harmonize awesome. He is decently versatile, though, so it's just kind of like he is a duelist, not an overpowered one, but he has crazy stats. So there are some fun things you can do with him. I do like mixing him personally with the Tong Warriors from Mandalorian to just give him just an outrageous amount of hit points with the bodyguard ability, so you can just kind of slowly, methodically just waste people and never die, essentially. That's just an idea, but there's so many other ones you can do. I think his commander effect's pretty solid. I don't think it's crazy, but it is awesome to just bring in Mandalorians. I think he's a solid one. Blue Milk gives him an 8.3, which is a great score. He's just a solid duelist. Just awesome stats, like I mentioned. And he's not too expensive. He's like a little over $20 online. A lot of these Sith aren't too bad. Some of the bad ones, like I mentioned, are later on in the series. They just get so expensive, like Darth Sion or Sion. Darth Revan's crazy, as we know. Darth Talon's expensive. So these Champions of the Force ones, they're really good and they're not terribly expensive. So if you want to pick some of them up, not too bad. I do like Cool Drummer, though. He doesn't feel quite as overwhelming as the other ones, but he's not bad. Not bad at all. So then we get to the Darth Revan. I have a good memory of him forever ago, back in 2007, 2008. I got a Champions, the Force Unleashed booster for Christmas. Just I remember just one of them, and opened it up, and Darth Revan was in there, and it was so cool because he was the best character in terms of cost and rarity in the game for a long time. And I remember all my buddies were super jealous because Darth Revan's super cool, and in the game, even though he has some controversy, he's still really awesome. Like, don't get me wrong. So great memories with him, and he's definitely nostalgic for me. A lot of fun, but let's jump into him. So before Grandmaster Luke Skywalker came around, he was the highest costing character. He's 140, 21, 16, and 20. So you'll notice those stats are in some ways kind of worse. The attack's great, but the defense is not quite as good as maybe some of those other ones we've mentioned, and the hit points are way less. So maybe not the most crazy stats to match up with the 88, but I think his abilities kind of make up for that a little bit. He's got melee triple, which is awesome. Dark armor is great, just kind of boost that hit points sort of a little bit. Duelist is nice, really good in the melee situation. And the Master Tactician obviously is awesome to be able to essentially dictate, going first or second. That's very nice. Force powers, I actually don't love his force powers personally. I think that's kind of something that kind of holds him back a little bit. Force corruption's kind of fun. However, it's just kind of like I didn't reach you, so from a ranged, I'll kind of screw you up a little bit, and then maybe next turn, you'll come to me or I'll come to you, and then we can start attacking. I don't like Force Storm at all. I prefer Force Storm to go away and be something more useful. Block is useful though, so that kind of helps him a lot when it comes to those melee situations. So he's a really, really good duelist because he has tactician, he's got duelist, he's got triple, he's got block. So he has so many things to make sure he wins with duels. And his command effect is solid. Basically, droids are affected, and then non-unique characters within 6 squares, they get extra attack, and then you essentially kind of give intuition to somebody, which is cool. Like, giving intuition to someone can be very, very good with Master Tactician. So I think overall, I really, really like him a lot. I think he's really good, but part of me feels like maybe he should cost like 80 or something like that, just because even though it feels like some of his powers are, and some of the ways his powers come together is really powerful, he costs 88, which is just so much. And I feel like if you're not careful with him, he could die sometimes. I don't want to say fast, but like there's just something about him where I feel like he just feels a little just slightly overcosted to me. I think he's still really awesome. You could do cool things with him. You know, in a way, his commander effect makes the Sith Assault droids much more interesting, much more fun for the Sith, whereas for the Sith Assault droids and Elite Sith Assault droids were just kind of like, I don't know, they had no support. You had to bring fringe characters in if you wanted to really support them. You know, they would be incredible on Separatists, obviously, but I think this kind of helps them. You know, he gives them better attack. They benefit from his commander effects, which is really great. You know, imagine having the Elite Sith Assault droid, you move it into position with the commander effect, you go first, and then you can just blast somebody away. That could be kind of fun, but it's a little tricky. So anyways, let's just jump into just kind of the review. So his hit points are kind of average. I think 140 is great. That's like on the high end, but there are a couple outliers, you know, that have like, you know, the 180, the 180, the 200, but that's kind of the exception, not the rule. So 140 is still really good, but maybe his hit points should be more like a 2 instead of a 3. His range survivability is solid. The solid stats, and then dark armor helps with that. Melee survivability is fantastic, like we've mentioned. His attack's awesome. You know, for being an 88, he doesn't have the 19 attack that the other guy has, Exarchon, but 16's fantastic anyway. His max damage is solid. It's just 60 though. He doesn't have like rage or something to up it up a little bit, but it's still solid. His special abilities I think are incredible. Like those are really good. Really, really good. I can't complain about those at all. His force powers are fine. Like renewal's good that he has it. Corruption's cool. Block's good. I hate Force Storm. I feel like if he was going to really be an 88, I think he would need his force powers to be jacked up just a little bit. Maybe like have, you know, don't have Force Storm, have something else that's more useful. Maybe have Master of the Force 2 or something, or Force Renewal 2. I don't know. Maybe Master of the Force 2 actually, or something like that. There's just something about his force powers that I feel like that's the aspect of him that's kind of being held back. I feel like if his force powers were figured out better, it would be, I think you justify 88 right on. But anyway, special abilities go together well. In my opinion, I really like that he has triple tactician duelist, so he's really like, he's going to duel great. He really will. It's just maybe like the range characters might take advantage of him a little bit, but dark armor will help a little bit. His commander effect I think is really nice. As a Sith Lord, I'm just giving him a 4, and the reason is though is like, even though on paper he looks incredible, he still costs, you know, an arm and a leg to use him. So you just have to really be careful kind of what squad you organize to use him with. There are certain situations where he's not going to match up well, potentially, but there's some situations where if it's like a kind of maybe more melee dictated battle, you know, Master Tactician will always be good, but I don't know, something just kind of feels off about him, but regardless, he's awesome. I think he's got a great bag of tools. Like I mentioned, feels slightly underpowered, even though he looks so good still. But I do think that oh shoot. When I put this together, I used acronyms. I said MT mixes very well with this commander effect. And I just see that I'm just like, oh shoot, who was I referencing? I don't know. Either way, the Sith Assault droids and the Elite Sith Assault droids I think can be made a lot more viable with him, especially the Elite Sith Assault droid. I think if you mix him with his commander effect, that could be a fun thing to throw in there to make Darth Revan a little bit better. So I do like that a lot. And then I think he's a great sub melee duelist just in general. So that's my bad. I used him. I was thinking of something when I put MT mixes very well with his commander effect, and I totally did not. I totally forgot what I was trying to go for there. Whoops, that's my bad. So anyway, Darth Revan, I think he's awesome. Something feels a little off. I think maybe if his force powers were stronger, I think 88 would be more appropriate. And you can see the Blue Milk score, like 8.3 is good, but that's kind of like held back a little bit compared to the other ones. And yeah, he's the most expensive character to get. I see him range for $200, sometimes $300. I actually have him listed on my page right now for like $180, which is still really fair price. But really cool. So anyway, I've spent too much time on Darth Revan, so let's move on. This is turning into a long video, but the Sith are kind of fun to talk about. So Darth Caedus, he's I think the second to last character, third to last character I have on here. Try to pick it up. So he's 60, 110, 20, 13, and 20. So his stats are really underpowered for a 60, but he's got double attack, virulent poison dart, which is kind of a nice ranged option as like a kind of like a backup plan, which could be really helpful. Kind of like almost a guaranteed 40 damage from range if you're out of your melee distance. His force powers are really solid, and really his whole character kind of works around the AIM-T flow walking. So essentially, it's like you use 3 force points, and you get an extra active. You get to use him again, or before the round even starts. So you could basically potentially use him twice. So really awesome. It's a very, I don't want to say it's a tricky thing to do, but you definitely have to be a very tactically minded to make that work well. He also has illusion, which is very good. So, kind of going back over, he's got illusion, which is an awesome defensive power. Assault's always nice, and Sith Rage is good. So, he can move and attack twice, and he could use Sith Rage if he's kind of in the moment. He could do it, but he couldn't do that with AIM-T flow walking because, like, that was the force point he used to kind of go. So, with him, kind of it's like you use the 3 force points. You basically do a turn so you could like kind of move up to somebody. You could attack, you could use virulent poison dart, I don't know, you could use it twice. So like there's so many options you can use with that particular force power. So that's why you have to do a lot of careful planning, be very tactically minded. I haven't really used him much at all really in any particular game, so I'm the wrong person to ask. I'd love to know how you would prefer to use Darth Caedus. What's the best way to use him? What do you think? I'd love to hear that. So overall, his hit points and stats are terrible. His hit points are terrible. I do think his survivability overall is really nice with illusion, but you're going to run out of force pretty quick probably, which is something to keep in mind. But his attack is kind of meh. His damage potential is kind of meh. However, if you kind of factor in AIM-T flow walking, then it's much better. So it's kind of like you have to think about it that way. His force powers, nice. Very nice. Just kind of a little limited on the force, like the force like the amount of force he can use. Special abilities are great, extremely versatile. Like AIM-T flow walking is just kind of like, okay, whatever, do whatever you want, which is super great for versatility. And as a Sith Lord, I give him a 4.5. I know he's only at 8.2, which is kind of low on the scale, or lower on the scale for these powerful Sith Lords, but I think he's really good. Like, I think for a 4.5, it's like, yes, he's got his problems with his bad stats, but I think if you can just use him right, like if you can very carefully and like if you know what you're doing, I think you could turn him into a menace. So that's just my opinion. I'm not sure. I haven't really used him much anyway, like I mentioned, but like I just see a lot of potential written all over this guy. And he's one of the more pricey ones, kind of. He's in the $70 range. Not horrible, but if you really want him, then that's about how much you could expect to pay unless you find a great deal. So let's move on to Darth Krayt, who's one of my favorite Sith Lords, honestly. I just love his kind of overall versatility, what he can do. So for 76, his stats aren't looking that awesome. So he's got 130, 21, 14, and 20. Nice stats, if you're just kind of looking at it, but once you realize he's a 76, you're like, okay, maybe yikes going on there. But he does have pilot, which can be interesting in certain situations. Deadly attack is cool. It's kind of a cherry on top power. Triple's always good, and he has crab armor 6. So crab armor 6 is really really cool because you can kind of artificially jack up his hit points, almost not 100% certainty, but with really good chance. You could be like, maybe you fight people that do 20 damage oftentimes, and say most of the time your thing hits. Well, he has 130 hit points, but when all is said and done, it's more like 200 hit points or something like that. So you got to keep that in mind. It's actually a really, really versatile defensive power. And I do like his force powers in general. They're very basic. Like, I wish he had one more useful one, but Force Lightning 2, I'm always a fan of it. It's a nice, just kind of auxiliary power to just kind of do some damage, hit some characters. Sweep is decent. I don't love Sweep, but it has its purposes. So his force powers are fine. I don't think they're like crazy. I do really like Force Lightning for its versatility. And then Renewal is always good. And his commander effect is, that classic extra attack one. So followers within 6, they gain extra attack. So I'm always a big fan of this commander effect. I think the only issue with this one is, I think other ones, I have to remember that I think there's like 5 characters in the game that have this commander effect, and some of them say allies, I believe. But it's still fantastic. Giving followers extra attack. There's not a lot of commanders anyway on the Sith, or can use a lot of French characters as well, and they can really benefit from that. So I think it's an awesome commander effect, and mouse droids can obviously fix that range problem. So overall, his hit points not great, but its range survivability and melee survivability is really really helped out by having the crab armor. I think it's really really helpful. His attack is solid. I think I made a mistake here. 14 attack is not a 5. Why is that a 5? Yeah, that's my bad. He shouldn't be a 5. I don't know why I said that, because his attack, for 76, he should be more like in like the 3 range or something, or even less. So that's a mistake. He's not a 5. His max damage is pretty solid. Like, he does have triple attack, so he can use 60. Just the attack isn't as great, but deadly attack is pretty cool. So if you get lucky, you can get a little bit more critical hits. Special abilities, very nice. Force powers, pretty solid overall. Special ability, the way they harmonize together, it's not like he has ones that really harmonize great, but I think he's just crazy versatile. Like, having crab armor, having triple attack, having force lightning, he can really do a lot of things. So I like the versatility that he offers. His commander effect is awesome. I think overall, when it comes to Sith Lords, I think even though he's one of my favorite, a 4 is appropriate, just because I misspelled Duelist, I think, but just because he has his problems. Like, the stats aren't that great, so even if he is fighting somebody, maybe he might have trouble hitting people with high defense potentially. So I do like a lot of things he offers. He costs 76, so he's not cheap, but I think he's worth it. So I think he's a great Sith Lord, and he's not too terrible. He's $70, so a little cheaper than some of the other ones we've mentioned, but overall, really, really, really nice character. And there's something about him that I just really love, that versatility that he brings. So I wish he had I think if he had a defensive power like block or something, that'd be a little too powerful since he has crab armor, but he's really cool. The Tusken Raider Sith Lord. Let's go to the last one. This has already become a very long video. So Darth Anil is 42. He's got 120, 20, 12, and 20. Pretty solid, pretty like average hit points and like stats across the board. He's kind of all into that melee reach, so he's got melee reach, double, and flurry. And then he's got for force powers 2, lightning 1, and deflect, and he's limited on force 4. So they're fine powers. They're not too crazy, but I mean, deflect's always helpful. And his commander effect is he gives followers within 6 squares flurry attack. So I'm not a fan of that commander effect, because while flurry attack is a great power, it's more of a cherry on top power. It's not something that you can, obviously depend on, because it's a 1 in 20 chance. But like, if it works, it works. It's kind of like a worse version of Commander Cody's commander effect, kind of, because like that one at least is like all bang. It's like all go. It's all like fire, like just kind of all or nothing. So this one's just flurry attack, whereas Cody's was, I think, flurry and deadly attack, which, even though those likely won't happen that often, it's a really strong thing to happen when it does. So go big or go home. There you go. There's the euphemism. So overall, his range survivability is nice because he does have deflect that helps quite a bit, a little bit. Overall, just kind of average across the board in general. His force powers, I don't love them. They're limited. Force lightning's fine. One is fine, but it's just, it's kind of like, hey, range 620 damage. That's nice, but it's not incredible. Deflect is always good, but it will run out. So compared to some of the other Sith, I'd say the force power is a little underwhelming. But the special abilities, they harmonize decently well. I do like how he has flurry with melee reach too, so he doesn't have to get right next to people. He can kind of get up to them. Melee reach is always a cool thing to have. Commander effect, like I've mentioned before, I don't love it. And as a Sith Lord, I think he's decent. I give him a 3.5, so I think he's a decent Sith Lord. Not like incredible, but he's cool. And he's a little pricey too. I don't own this guy. I do need to pick him up though. He's about $50 online, so it's not as bad as some of the other ones, like the $70, $80 ones. But he's decent, so I think kind of in the game, he's got his roles. I don't have any like ideas right now for like kind of what are great combinations to mix him with. Like what's a great situation to use him, but. At 7.33, he's definitely a little lower than some of the other guys we've been talking about, but yeah, so cool character. I like kind of what he brings to the table. I like he's a 42. That's one of the cheaper Sith Lords. I think that might be the cheapest Sith Lord you can access. Maybe Darth Maul is a little cheaper, actually. I think he's a 41, but I have to double check. So overall, really cool. I think that's my last one for this. Yeah, so that's the last one for the for the part 1. So here's all the kind of the stats you can see all across the board. We have Darth Bane. Awesome all around, in my opinion. Just so many hit points. Just a total Jedi killer, bruiser, tank. He's a Jedi hunter as well. I should have mentioned that. Darth Malak at the core. He's a duelist, but he's not very good. I'd avoid him. He just has good attack. That's about it. Darth Nihilus looks bad if you take a look at it, but his force powers and his support role, very nice. Exar Kun. He's just very kind of like a tactical tank as well. I love how he can just deploy and just start blowing people up. So very, very strong. Ulako Droma is a nice duelist. He can bring Mandalorians in, which can be really nice. Darth Revan, he's a duelist as well. Very good at it, and he's a tactician. So he has a lot of kind of things on his plate, and I think if you can kind of find the right combinations, he could be really good. Like I mentioned, I like that he makes the Elite Sith Assault Droid kind of intriguing for the Sith. With his commander effect, and he's really good in melee situations as well. But I do think overall he's a little overcosted. But he's Darth Revan, so I guess they thought they had to make him an 88. Darth Caedus, really cool. You kind of gotta gear everything around that Ing-T flow walking, and if you do, can be really scary. Darth Krayt, just a very versatile character all around, and then Darth Neil, just a solid Sith Lord. He's not like crazy like the other ones, but he does have good powers. He's got that good range survivability overall, and can do some fun stuff with. If you can give him deadly attack, that could help him quite a bit. But since he's a commander, it might be harder to do. So, overall, sorry for the long video. If you stuck around this long, I appreciate it. Please like, please subscribe, and I'd really like to hear what you think about the Sith Lords. Like, even though maybe in the game they are expensive and there's much better squads you can make on other teams, I still think the Sith Lords, there's something about them that's just so cool to me. And I like all the unique things they bring to the table. Some of them are underpowered. And we're going to explore some more Sith Lords in the next section. Some really good ones and some pretty terrible ones. But overall, they're really cool. So again, I'd like to hear your thoughts on these characters. Where do you think I'm right? Where do you think I'm wrong? But overall, just would love to get some conversation going. So with that, I'll leave it right there and have a great day, and I'll see you later.